Gig Gab, episode 452 for Monday, October 21st, Everyone Writes Day 2024. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Gig Gab, the show by, for, and about working musicians. Our sponsor for this episode is a new sponsor for us at HelloBand.io, which is a cool fan engagement app. We'll talk about that in a little bit. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton, and my guest co-host today is, he is a songwriter with 14 number one hits, and I think I can do this just by saying their first names, written number one hits for Shania, Tim, Reba, Garth, Kenny, Kelly, and Ringo, among many others. A teacher, a touring musician, and now an author, Gary Burr. Thank you so much for coming on Gig Gab and talking to us today.
Oh, glad to be here. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, fun stuff. So let's talk about you've got a new book coming out that I love the concept of, and we're definitely gonna dig into this. But I want to give people a little bit more about who you are and how you got started in this. You know, we say that this show is about being a working musician, and you've checked a lot of boxes on what it takes to be a working musician, and one of those is as a songwriter. And you've clearly, a huge part of your career has been Gary Burr, the songwriter, as opposed to Gary Burr, the person performing on stage, although you do that too. So tell us a little bit about how what was the evolution of that, and how did the songwriting get started? What was that like?
Well, the evolution, the songwriting is what really brought me into all the other things.
Ah, okay. All right.
Everyone that I've gotten to work with because I started out being a collaborator for writing with them. And then, it went from there. Where it all started, it's very interesting. I went to Woodstock, the original Woodstock.
Okay.
And I was in Connecticut, like you. And yeah. My dad was an electrician, and he had an electrical company. And I was kind of in line that I always thought, since I was failing very badly at school, I kind of resigned myself that I was going to end up, my fallback was going to be I'll probably just end up working for my dad or running his business when he moves on. Yeah, that's a very common thing. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, certainly in New England. Yeah. You graduate high school, you marry your high school sweetheart, you join your father's company, you eat a lot of cheese and sausage, and you die young. That's am I wrong? Is that Connecticut?
No, that's Connecticut. Yeah, which is, yes, where I grew up. Yeah, it's very, very much Connecticut. Yes.
So I went to Woodstock, and I'm sitting there, and it dawns on me very quickly that the guys down there on the stage were going to get a lot more girls than electricians. And I was with a guy that I didn't really know, but we started talking, and by the end of the weekend, it turned out he was a drummer. I was learning how to play guitar. So we went back after Woodstock, we went home, and I broke my leg playing soccer for high school. And I was in a body cast from my nipples down to my toes. And I'm flat on my back, but I worked on my guitar for months until I could get up and walk around. And we started the band, and we played Birds and Beatles and Stones. And at some point, everybody in the band looked at me and said, all of the songs we play were all written by those band's guitar players. You're our guitar player. You're supposed to write our songs.
So this songwriting thing was not your idea.
No, it was a mantle that was put on me, kind of like a royal family or something. Yeah, I was suddenly ordained that I was the guy that's supposed to write the songs. So I wrote a bunch of songs that were like ripping off Neil Young and the Beatles, and It was pretty awful. But I'll tell you what, man, that feeling when I taught it to the band and the band played a song that I wrote, it was an amazing feeling. And I just kept at it and kept at it and got better at it. And I was still working for my dad, but now I kind of had an outlet.
Sure.
And I'd work during the day and crawl through people's attics and fiberglass. And at night I'd write a song. And then one day I wrote a song that I sent to somebody and they loved it. And they knew somebody in Nashville and they sent it on down to Nashville. And the next thing you know, the song is on the radio and I made a bunch of dough and I was able to, stop being an electrician and be a permanent full-time songwriter.
I say just like that. Obviously, it took work to get to that point, but there are these moments in all of our lives that are sort of defining moments, and this was one for you. You now live in Nashville as opposed to Connecticut, correct?
Right. Yeah, I moved down here about 35 years ago. And it's funny, when I started writing, I was writing songs like the songs I love. Neil Young songs, Dylan songs. And I had a guy in New York that was interested in what I was doing, and he had connections.
Got it.
But I kept sending him songs, but they weren't going anywhere because I was writing. I learned later, looking back on it, I was writing the songs that I like. Then I said, okay, I got to start listening to the radio because those are the songs that everybody likes. Oh. And they were shorter and hookier and catchier and everything just less condensed. So that's when I started to write that kind of stuff, that I wrote one. And since it was so short and simple that I only wrote about 45 seconds of it and then I got bored. But it was on the tape, and the guy in New York said, that's the one. Finish it. Yeah. And then come down to New York, and we did a demo of it. And that was the one that ended up being on pop radio. Love's Been a Little Bit Hard on Me by Juice Newton, 1982.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know that song. Everybody, I assume many people, I don't want to say everybody knows the song, but yeah, I mean, it's.
You still hear it in the produce department at your grocery store.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Amazing. Okay. This is what a really interesting twist, though, where you had that realization of, okay, wait a minute. If I want this to be my career as opposed to an electrician being my career, I need to, just like being an electrician, you don't go to somebody's house and wire it up the way you want. You wire it up the way they want. It's a customer service business. And you essentially took that essence and applied it to songwriting. It makes sense. Yeah.
It really did. The difference between the old songs and the new songs were like night and day. And it served me well when I moved down here to Nashville, because then you're writing with people and they're all very well versed in, the cliches of country writing,
Sure.
3 chords and the truth, don't bore us, get to the chorus. All those kinds of things they're funny, but it's funny because they're true. They are absolutely the rules we live by down here. Tell a story, write a song that sounds the way people talk. And I really embraced it. And I got better the more I wrote with people. I mean, my first time I ever wrote with anybody, they put me with Vince Gill.
Oh.
Yeah, no pressure there.
Yeah.
This was him kind of, he was a little bit pre Vince Gill. He and I were in the same band. We were both the lead singer of Pure Prairie League. Just at different times. At
different times. So, yeah, if my homework is correct, you succeeded him in Pure Prairie League, right?
Right. Yeah, he left the band. They hired another guy who on their first gig got kicked out of the hotel for sleeping with the maid, and so they fired him and they hired me. Amazing.
One guy's indiscretion leads to a gig. For you. Love it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So being the writer is what, they have writing camps all the time. I came down to Nashville, but you'd have a writing camp like in Miami or even in France. They have writing camps in France, in this castle owned by Miles Copeland, the guy that
Oh,
manages Sting and REM. And
yeah. Stuart Copeland's brother.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he bought a castle and amortizes it by having all these writer retreats, and all these writers would go with artists. And, you'd be at the castle and it would be, Ted Nugent and Carole King and Olivia Newton-John and Hanson and, just the Bangles, the Go-Go's. They would all at different times. I went to about 6 of them. And so every time it was very exciting who you were going to meet.
Yeah.
But every one of those people that I met, I wrote with Carole King. And 6 months later, she called me up and said, I'm going on tour. Come and play with me. Because we had a good time and we wrote well and we sang well together. So next thing I know, I'm touring the world with Carole King. And that was where I met Mark Hudson, who was producing Ringo. And he called me up and said, I'm working on an album with Ringo. Come and help me write the songs. So I've been working with Ringo for 20 years. And all because of the songwriting. You called up and, if you're a good hang and you can play a bunch of instruments and sing harmonies, you're a commodity.
It is, we talk about this on this show in so many different ways. We come at this same topic from so many different angles, but what you just said there encapsulates it, where if you can deliver, if you can play, singing harmonies, adding to your talent stack, right? Making yourself more valuable. And the important one is being a good hang. A couple of years ago, I went last minute to see James Taylor at the local venue here in New Hampshire or whatever. And we literally bought the tickets at noon on it was a last minute fire sale or whatever. It was like, great, we'll go see James Taylor. And after we bought the tickets, I went to my desk and I was like, who's in his band? Who am I going to see tonight? Because he's always got a talented band, and sometimes there's heavy hitters,
Right.
And as I read through it, Gad was in the band, and, there were several heavy hitters in the band. And the way they did the bios for the musicians was they clearly asked each musician 10 questions and then took the answers, their best 3 answers, and that was that was their bio, which was a smart way to do it, right? In the days before ChatGPT could just write all that stuff for you. And every one of them, somewhere in their bio, if they answered the question, what do you like about this band? It was, the hang is good.
Yeah.
And it was that's why they took this tour. Because Gad probably had 10 offers on the table and picked the one that he wanted. And it's because he knows the hang's going to be good. It's more important than most people think.
Yeah, it's also that way with songwriting. There are people that you write with and you come away going, well, I like the song, but I didn't really enjoy the hang. And you just don't do it anymore. So you got to be a good hang and pick up the occasional tab at a restaurant, and you'll always write with good people.
Yeah. Yeah, be a good hang and pick up the occasional tab. These are the gems of advice here.
That's right. It got me to the middle of the ladder.
Yeah, but I think you love what you do, and you got to pick what you wanted to do. So the middle of the ladder is a good place to be, man.
Yeah, to be honest, when I was at Woodstock, I wanted to be part of that. I didn't care what part. I could be a guitar player. I could have been a roadie. I could have been a manager. I knew that was a world that was on its way to taking over everything about my life. And I just wanted to be something in it. Bass player, drummer, like I say, roadie, technician, it doesn't matter, sound guy. And and I started out running the gamut. I started out just being a guitar player in a band, and then a writer in the band, and then a producer in the studio, and a multi-instrumentalist. So I get to play all the different instruments, and, putting out your own records. So you get to be a record. Whatever comes your way, just, talk to the people that know how to do it, teach yourself how to do it. And you got another tool in your tool pouch.
That's it. And that, not being afraid to talk to the people who know how to do something that you don't know how to do. That is an underrated talent, to be willing to say, hey, I don't know how to do that. I had somebody come to me the other day and was like, hey, teach me how to like learn how to sing harmony vocals. I was like, okay, like this is going to be a long road, but I'll happily start you down it. And we talked about it on an episode a couple of weeks ago. And But being willing to ask those questions is a great way to learn, because it's, because it is. And also it shows people some humility, and that adds to making you a good hang. And so, there you go.
Yeah. Also, now that I'm, in the cocktail hours of my life, I'm reminded of that. So it makes me want to help anybody that comes and says, can you show me this? Can you, this weekend I've got a young writer coming to town, and I'm going to spend the weekend not only writing, but teaching as we write.
Yes.
They want a one-on-one thing that's not just a class, because I do teach songwriting, but they want product at the end of it. So we're going to do what I love to do, which is write a song, and along the way, explain why we're making the decisions that we're making.
Love it. So that's so great. And that's how that whole apprentice model is so much of this business, and it's true with songwriting. It's true with playing and singing and, doing sound. We have sound engineers on the show sometimes, and like, everybody's just either learning or teaching, or usually both at some level. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to be open for the learning part of it for you. Everybody I write with, everybody I've worked with taught me something. When I write with somebody, I want to not only get a good song, but I want to come away and kind of pay attention and go, how did they do this? We ran into a problem here. How did they get out of it? And see if it's the same way that I would have gotten out of it. And you learn so much. I wrote a lot of songs with Kenny Loggins. Yeah. And because he and I were in a band with my wife, Georgia Middleman, another hit songwriter. And we wrote with Kenny, and it was so the opposite. Down here in Nashville, we want to get a verse and a chorus before lunch. Okay. And then we come back, and we know that we've only got about a half hour before we fall asleep. So boom, you get the second verse and the song is done. And you say, see you later. Now, Kenny will spend a month writing a song. He'll wander the hills of Santa Barbara, musing with the oak trees or whatever kind of trees are in Santa Barbara. And it was a real clash trying to write a song with somebody that he lingers behind. We're writing the next part of the song, and he's lingering behind, and I can tell that he's still on the last thing that I thought we're done with, and we're moving on. But then he'll go, hold on a second, guys. I know we're past this, but try this. And every time he did that, it was something that made the song 200% better. It was always something brilliant that I, cruised over.
You didn't even you didn't stop to spend the time to see if it might be improvable. Right.
Right. I mean, it's really funny. You always want to write the best song possible, but you are always aware that they wrote Love Me Do in 15 minutes. They wrote, Paul and John, used to just sit down and go, come on, we got 20 minutes to write a song. Let's write a pool and write something that'll buy them a pool. And I'm aware of that. So I do like to sort of just get it going and then roll downhill with it. And he wants to stop along the way and pick up pebbles and go, isn't this pretty? What does this do to our lyric?
Yeah. I mean, two different styles. It's just all it is. Yep.
Yeah. Two different styles. Very interesting.
That is interesting. I mean, there's a moment at which, there's a phrase that we can adapt that, perfect is the enemy of publish, right? If you seek perfection in everything, you wouldn't have ever published a single song, right?
Right. I've gone to some of these, I don't know what they call them, songwriter retreats, where
Sure.
part of what we do is critiquing. Somebody will come and play you a song, and you tell them, well, here's what I would do. And I've had people come play me a song. Great song. Here's what I would do. I would do this, 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 and this. A year later, I'm back at the retreat. Same guy sits down, plays me the exact same song. He hasn't changed it. He hasn't done it. He's still trying to find the magic thing. And in that year, he could have written another 30, 40, 50 songs. This song is not the song.
Probably not. Yeah.
Probably not. That's what Harlan Howard said to me the first time I sat down to write with him. He looked at me and said, "Son, you and I are going to write a great song together. Probably won't be this one." Because it takes a while, it takes a while for the chemistry, but
that's a great, it's true. We talk about this. I do another show called Business Brain, and we talk to entrepreneurs, and it's a lot of the same. It's like, just go and fail for a while, and you'll figure out what you can do well, and then you'll do that well. But without being willing to try something, nothing's going to happen. And you can't look for perfection or even something good the first time out. Get it done. Feel the process.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the kind of writer that I don't like to rewrite. I don't revisit songs.
Okay.
So I do spend time on, I like to think that I write it the way it's supposed to be written the first time. Because every time I've ever had a song where my publisher said there's something wrong with it, try to fix it and try to rewrite it, I either never could, or it ended up getting cut and recorded and was a hit just the way I told him it was supposed to be.
Sure. Yeah.
But I do have to worry about that because, no comparison here, but we all, if everything in my brain is either Seinfeld trivia or Beatle trivia. And we will do fine together, my friend. Yeah, I know from the history of the Beatles that I'm a John, and Kenny and my wife are both Pauls. They will work on a song over and over and over to perfect that. I'll do it once and go, that's good enough. Let's go. Yeah, and neither one is right, neither one is wrong. It's just two different
approaches. That's it. Yep. Yeah. All right, folks, I want to take a minute and talk about our sponsor for this week, which is HelloBand.io. And this is a superb way to engage with your fans at gigs with no friction. Because we need to always be performing, but part of that is that two-way street with our fans, right? And so what this is it's an app, and or it starts as an app, and it is, but it's more than an app. Bear with me. You go into the app and you set up essentially your landing page. They have this great tool that you can put all the things that you would want on your landing page. And you can pick and choose what you want, but you can put a way to collect, their email address. You can put your socials on there. You can give them ways to tip. You can give them ways to request songs. And yes, you can put your song list into the app. You can give them simple ways to just say hello to you from the crowd. They don't have to come up to the stage to do this. And the way it works is they scan a QR code with their phone at their table, and then that brings them to a thing. They don't need the app. You have the app on your phone on stage. They just come to this webpage. They do whatever they're going to do. And if they're going to send you a request, it appears on your phone on stage. If they're going to send you, a hello or something, that appears on your phone on stage. And they've got this great quick start package that is a game changer because it comes with custom made table cards and posters and all kinds of things that have your QR code on them, as well as what people can do with it. And again, you customize these, right? You get everything you need. And the Quick Start package, you get 6 months of HelloBand subscription, 200 table cards, 10 posters, all for just $57, and it's delivered right to your door. And if you're like me, always be performing means always staying connected. So head to helloband.io/quickstart, and then you can use our code GigGab20, GIGGAB20, for an additional discount off that, right? So helloband.io/quickstart, and then code GIGGAB20 for an extra discount. And this way you can step up your fan engagement, always be performing. And our thanks to HelloBand for sponsoring the show. So you mentioned that you spent some time with Ringo, and I think you toured with him too as part of the All-Star Band. Is that correct? And if so, what was it like touring and collaborating with Ringo?
Okay, no, that is not correct.
Not correct. Okay.
Nope. But it's a common mistake. I met Ringo back in 1998 working on an album called Vertical Man.
Yeah.
And we hit it off and we liked working together. So almost every album he's done since then, I've been on either writing most of the album or one or two cuts.
Got it.
We just I go out to LA, I go over and we write it, we sit in a room and we write a song. And in the early 2000s, he did a string of records produced by Mark Hudson, and we had a set group of guys that wrote the album. We'd wake up in the morning, we'd go in the studio, get warmed up. Ringo would come in, he'd say, "Today I want to write this title, this style." We'd write until lunchtime. After lunch, we would record the basic track, go have dinner, and then at night we'd add all the bells and whistles. And by the end of the day, we had a song. And then the next day would be the next song. And then when the record was coming out, that group of people would play the David Letterman show, play the Jay Leno show, play The Bottom Line, play, these cool, these nice venues. Yeah. Just as a promotional tool for the record. And that was a group called the Roundheads. So Ringo and
the Round Hits? Okay.
Roundheads.
Roundheads, got it. Okay.
Roundheads. So I was in the Roundheads, and we did get to play out, a lot. Wish we had done it more. But we also got to play, the songs that we wrote. So it was really fun.
That's really cool. Oh, wow. What a cool thing. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And playing with Ringo is like, every bit it is. The first time the first time I met him, I flew to London and we were on stage, and we were going to play the VH1 Storytellers.
Oh yeah.
And the band was me, Simon Kirke on drums from Bad Company, Joe Walsh on guitar. Who else was in it? Mark Hudson, Jack Blades from Night Ranger on bass. So it was this great band. And
damn Yankees, because
yeah. and we rehearsed about 3 days before Ringo showed up because we wanted him to walk in and have us play the songs great.
Sure.
So he's up on stage. It's like 10 minutes. We start the first song, and the first song we're doing, I don't remember what it was, whatever it is. At one point, Hudson says to me, "Gary, what are you singing in the bridge?" I said, "Well, the first two lines, I'm singing the third above. And then the next two lines, I'm doubling Ring." And Ringo walks up to the mic and goes, "I've known him 5 minutes and I'm Ring." And I went pale. I go, "Oh my God." When we were done with that song, I was in the bathroom, my head against the tile. And Mark goes, "You okay?" I go, "He hates me. He's going to send me home." He goes, No, that's Liverpool. If he likes you, he gives you shit.
Yeah.
I said, "I hope you don't like me too much because I'm going to soil myself."
Yeah.
But it's
That's
a lot of
awesome.
fun. It's a lot of
That's
fun, you know.
awesome.
And he'll play and he'll do a Ringo drum fill,
Yeah.
and everybody's head will turn around and look. And he goes, I know you're going to do that. That's why I do it. I just want to see how your heads turn around.
That's so great. He knows what his legacy is, clearly. I mean, you obviously, I don't know him, you know him, but from what I've seen and the persona that we get, he's well aware of where he has come from and why he is as revered as he is. And it's part of being part of the Beatles, but also just part of who he is. I mean, he's just he seems like a genuinely good human. And
very funny, very, very nice, very sweet. And he is. And it's great. It's been great fun.
I bet. Wow. Cool. All right. So this is a perfect time to talk about this book that you've put together. It's called Reunion, a rock and roll fairy tale. I say put together. You've written this book, and it was perfect. You probably heard it at the beginning of the show. It might not mean anything to you if this is your first time listening or being a part of Gig Gab. But at the beginning of every episode, I like to find a holiday. Many of them are made up by people like you or me, but today is Everyone Writes Day. And I figured what a perfect day to highlight for having you on, because you're both a songwriter and a book writer. You've written this book called Reunion, a rock and roll fairy tale about, it's a what if story. Please, right. I want to let you tell people what it is. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, I love what if stories. I love a good what if stories. I love the idea of an alternate timeline because one little thing happens. And I was in New York. I was actually walking around Strawberry Fields, looking at the Dakota. And I thought, what would it have taken for John and his killer never to have met? John could have spent like a little more time in the studio listening to a couple of extra takes. The guy could have gotten hungry or cold or have to pee or something, and they would have missed each other. And that would have created a totally different timeline. And that it was during the pandemic, and everybody was writing songs over Zoom. And I don't like writing songs over Zoom. So I was saying, what am I going to do? So I started to write about that. And the idea is something happens, a little thing in the scheme of the universe, but it makes John and that guy never meet. And now it's 20 years later, and something else happens that makes Paul decide it might be time to get everybody back together. They haven't seen each other in years and years. George hasn't played guitar in 10 years. I can make my own world. George hasn't played guitar in 10 years. John's made all these alternate albums all through the 80s because he was there. And, Ringo is playing small clubs with his all-stars. And Paul goes through something where his family says, you got to do this. So he picks up the phone and chickens out. He basically calls Ringo and tells Ringo to call the rest of them. But they all get back together. And it's sort of, we all dreamed for 10 years about a reunion. And then John was gone.
Yep. And
now for 40 years, it's all been what ifs. So I wrote a great what if story. After 20 years with Ringo, I've heard the stories. I've heard he loves talking about them and how they interacted and what they said to each other. And I've seen, gifts that they've given each other with cards and things like that. So I think I tried to do the best job I could with the relationships. The people that have read the book say that it really felt like them talking to each other. But if I had to be in a band, if I had to be in a room with the guys that I was in a band with when I was 20, I don't think it would be pretty. I think
not at first. It'd be super awkward.
Yeah, it would be super awkward. And the guys, you got to run the risk that the guys that were assholes 20 years ago or worse now.
Yeah, they got worse.
And
Yes.
if none of them seem to be assholes, then you were the asshole.
Then you.
Yeah. And,
That's right.
between being in so many bands and spending so much time in studios, I really tried to capture it. And the best thing that people that have read it say is they just felt like they were in the middle of Beatlemania all over again. And I just had a great time writing it. It took me, 3-something years to write it. And I'm just really pleased that people are going crazy for it. It's a fun read. I've had a lot of friends yell at me saying, well, I started it at 9:00 at night and I was still finishing it at 4 a.m. because I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
You want to see what happens all the way to a concert.
That's awesome. I have not made it. I have not finished the book. The scheduling of all this sort of happened fairly quickly, and so I've started the book, but I have not finished it. But I'm hooked. It's so. I was hooked when I saw you put a little promo video on your website that I saw before we got together, and I watched that, and it gave me chills. And sitting here listening to you tell this story again gave me chills, and I love this. It's great. And I know that I'm not alone. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people go, gee, wouldn't it be great to have them get back together if they were all still alive? Yeah. But it's the logistics of it. How do you keep it secret while they're trying to find out if they can do it or not? What's Yoko going to feel about all this after all these years? Because in my book, John kind of went back to being John and not John and Yoko. So she's not going to be happy, and George, he always said during the anthology, the Beatles gave their nervous systems.
Yeah.
In my book, he's not terribly, excited and gung-ho about doing this, but that's the fun of it. You bring them through it, and there's a villain who's trying to screw it up. And, it was a lot of fun.
That's real life. I mean, we can look at what we're seeing from the outside, at least from my perspective, of what's happening with, all of the stories bubbling about the Talking Heads right now, right? There's a lot of conversation happening, and there's a lot of money on the table. And then also look at the Gallagher brothers, right? Oasis with their whole thing. I mean, that has been talked about for decades, and and many of us presumed, oh, no, there's no way those two guys will ever share a stage again.
Yeah. And what I loved about it is...
And I'm not sure they'll make it to the States. Like, I'm not sure they'll make it through all the European gigs successfully.
Yeah, I would not want to have spent $1,000 on a ticket for Oasis.
No. What I want to see is what the insurance rider looks like on this. And if the brothers wind up fighting, are they on the hook for paying everybody off? Or is it the insurance company?
I bet you they had to sign something that said they're on the hook if it's their fault.
I would assume. I mean, it doesn't take a genius at an insurance company underwriting department to look and say, hey, what's the most likely thing that would crater this particular venture? And it's those two guys. That's it.
Oh, yeah. It's like, asking for fire insurance and wearing flammable clothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Who do you think is going to be stupid enough to do it?
Right.
But what I loved about this book is what I did was one of the main things I wanted was to have John and Paul sit down and write a new song for the concert. Because that would have been something that would have made it for Paul a little extra icing on the cake. So in the book, I have them sit down and I have them write a song for the concert. And then I wrote the song.
Of course.
And there's a QR code at the end of the book where you can get the song and Ringo's playing drums on the song.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Huh. Yeah, that would be the thing that from what we see from Paul today, that, if he was able to sit down and write a song with John again, I think he would probably do whatever it took to make that happen.
Yeah, but then they argue about whose name's going to be first.
Of course.
Paul's been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At least 20 years. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, this is so great. Okay, yeah. Now I really want to finish the book. This is awesome. This is great. What are you? So the book's out. Obviously, you're doing some promotion for the book, and that's how you and I had the pleasure of meeting. What else is happening? Are you just someone who writes songs every day? Is that just part of your routine, or is that something you go through phases with, or
No,
what else are you doing?
We started this at when we started this, my songwriter collaborator had just left 10 minutes before. We still haven't got the last verse, but I had to kick her out because I said, I've got an interview.
Awesome.
So, I still write. A friend of mine came down from Connecticut and we wrote all weekend, wrote 4 songs this weekend. I'm kind of nutty. I really need to write every day and do something creative every day. So been writing a lot. I've actually written a whole second book, but I'm only on the first draft, and I've kind of set it aside to give Reunion the opportunity it deserves. And just came back from a Beatle Fest, the Beatle Festival for the Beatle fans. I went and did one in North Carolina, and doing another one in Jersey in the spring. Oh. Those are really fun and a very avid audience for any new kind of literature about the Beatles. And, playing shows, play the Bluebird here in town.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Just
that's cool.
That a couple of nights ago.
As part of as a songwriter in the rotation for the evening kind of thing?
Yeah, we do something called Writers in the Round, 4 of us in the middle of the room. And we each take turns and we play along with each other and play our hits and try out new material.
I'm sorry I missed that. That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, it always is a blast.
Yeah.
And I got a new song on Kenny Chesney's new album.
Oh, nice.
So that's something current that I wrote with Mike Reed. He wrote I Can't Make You Love Me for Bonnie Raitt.
Okay.
But now with me, he finally wrote a good song.
Wait, which song is it on Kenny's new record so people can know? I know we can look it up, but
it's called Wherever You Are Tonight. It's the last song on the album.
Nice.
Yeah. So, things are really, 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 really busy. That between that and playing pickleball every morning, it's a full life.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love it, and I love stories from people like you. Don't often get the attention that I think they deserve, because it is it's an amazing career that you have and that you've had and that you're still having, and you get to be that working musician, and I love that. I mean,
there's a little of a Zelig quality to it where I keep finding myself in these situations where I go, how did this happen? I mean, I came to town to be an artist. Mm-hmm. I had a record deal in 1978, and the record company, as soon as they put my record out, they went out of business. So I really just said, I'm going to write songs while I try to get a record deal. Oh. And I'm going to try to sell songs during this time while I get a record deal.
Yeah, to put food on the table. Sure.
And I came to town and put a band together, and we were doing showcases for all the labels to try to get a record deal. While I was actually getting songs cut by Conway Twitty and the Oak Ridge Boys. And I had this great band, and I finally was giving up, and I was going to do one more show at the Bluebird. And I played the show, and at the end of the night, the lady from Warner Brothers was still there. And I got all excited going, oh, this must mean something. And I walked up to her and I said, does this mean what I think it means? And she said, yes, I'd really like to talk to your female background singer to give her a record deal.
Of course.
And that was how Faith Hill got her deal.
Seriously?
Yeah, she was my background singer. I taught her how to sing harmonies.
Amazing. Well, you backed us into that story brilliantly, my friend.
It's Zelig. It's Zelig. I got Who knows?
My life has been full of, I lead a differently, but similarly charmed life. And I when you said your life has a Zellig quality to it, it was like, I understand. Yes.
Yeah, it's really hard because being a writer here in Nashville, I always say it's probably the only profession that when you skip a day, you could be missing out on the song that gets you the Academy Award. Yeah. You know, a plumber doesn't have to worry about taking a day off. I had a friend of mine call me and say, please write with me. I'm writing with a writer and it's going to be really tough. And I had written like 8 days in a row. And I said, I'm taking tomorrow off. And she begged me, please, please, please. No, I'm taking tomorrow off. Come on, I can't do it. No, I'm taking tomorrow off. I took the next day off. It was Taylor Swift.
Of course.
Yes, I'm a moron. Of course. Yeah.
I mean, you're not a moron.
That's what makes you be like Jim Carrey in the movie. That's what makes you be a yes man. Yeah. Just say, yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll try.
Yeah. Well, that's the entrepreneur's curse is you can't, you know that if you say no, it might be that thing. If you had said no to writing the song that wound up on the radio with Juice Newton, we wouldn't be having this conversation necessarily. I mean,
no, but I could probably fix your light bulbs in your house.
You could run an Ethernet cable for me in my house, which I need. So there you go. Yeah.
Don't get crazy. I was pretty bad. I burned down a lot of houses in Middle Connecticut.
Well, that's why Ethernet cable's good. It's all low voltage. It's all fine.
Point. Yeah, I'm a killer with 12 volts.
There you go. Amazing. Thank you. Is there anything else before we say goodbye to each other here that you want to share with the audience or anything?
I did shoot a man in Reno once, but that was just to watch him die.
I love it. Amazing.
Thank you, Dave. This was a treat.
What a pleasure. Tell people if they want to follow your work, is your website the right place to go? Where can people go to follow you?
Yeah. Website, Gary at GaryBurr.com. If you go there, you can actually get an autographed copy of the book. The book is called Reunion. It's on Amazon.
I've got a link in the show notes for everybody. Yep. And
if I come play at an area near you, I hope you come and see me because it's usually a pretty good show.
I would love to. We would all love to come and see you. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for hanging out with us. There are 3 words that we always like to share here. If you would be so kind, if you would like to share those words on behalf of all of us.
Always be performing. You never know who's watching.
Nicely done, my friend.